Yo, what is up, guys? Grim here, and I've been MIA for a few days, but we're going to get straight back into our little guide series about the Atlas, and today we're going to be covering Zana and Prophecies, two of the most powerful things you can do to maps in this game. I would almost put them straight up there with Sextants, if not a little bit better than Sextants. Specifically, a few of them are much better than Sextants, so let's get started on Zana. So Zana is a master in PoE, and you can level up exactly like all the other masters. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with her. You can't get into maps without kind of talking to her a bit. But each level you level her up, you're going to get a new league modifier you can choose to put on your maps. You can do this by just checking out the map device, and they all cost a different amount of chaos. So the trick with these is knowing which ones are actually worth it to use, and the ones that are going to make sure you get your money back, because obviously you have to invest some amount of currency. Like the ones here I've got here are 3, 4, and 6 chaos. That's a lot of currency to invest in a single map, so you want to be making sure you're doing the correct ones to get your currency back. So that's what we're going to start off with. So I really wanted to open up with Zana is actually powerful just on her own. We're getting a bit of danger in the background there. She's powerful on her own. Every time you level her up, she's going to apply a flat quantity amount to your maps. So if you have a level 3 Zana, each of your maps are going to apply a 3% quantity increase to your maps. If you have level 7 or 8, it's going to be 7 and 8 respectively. So these are kind of a standard roll on every single map. When you choose to put a league modifier on your maps that you're running, that 7 and like 3 or whatever you have, what level Zana is, that gets taken off. It's kind of a one or the other. You have the quantity standard, but you lose it if you choose to use a league modifier. You can see it right there, just popped up on the screen, that's 7%. So now we have to decide whether that 7% is worth losing for these other league mods. And in a lot of cases, because it costs more currency and we're losing that, it's not worth it. So I'm going to talk about four here that we've got which can be worth it. The first one is Bloodlines. So Bloodlines basically adds more magic monsters to the map, and we know from past videos that magic monsters have a chance to drop +1 level maps and more loot on average than other monsters. So those are basically going to give you more currency drops, more rare, and all those other good drops, but more importantly, rare and high tier maps. So when are we going to use this one? This one is specifically used in high tier maps to either build a map pool and sustain it, or fish out high value maps like Guardian maps. So where I use it is on tier 15 maps and tier 16 maps, and sometimes when I'm trying to build up my map pool just on normal shape maps, but I prioritize using Bloodlines on 15s and 16s to make sure I'm getting more Guardian maps out of those and kind of push the envelope a little bit and maximize my gains. However, one thing to note with Zana is when you're doing a Zana mod on a Vald map, so it's corrupted, it's going to essentially double the cost of each Zana map. So Bloodlines, for example, is a 3 chaos investment for each map you're doing to get the Bloodlines mod on it. With Vaal Orbs and Corrupted Map, that goes up to 6 Chaos essentially, because it's going to cost 3 Vaals and 3 Chaos. So that's a lot to kind of take in. Now, remember that 7% quantity we were talking about before? Obviously, we lose that when we go to Bloodlines, but Bloodlines has 20% quantity built into it. So not only do you get the magic monsters, you also get 20% quantity. So we're actually gaining a net of 13% increased quantity from using Bloodlines. So that makes that 3 Chaos pretty worth it if you're in those high tier maps. So the next one I want to talk about is Perandus. So Perandus is, it's kind of a bit hit or miss. A lot of people have been running it. It's basically similar to kind of trying to farm Burial Chambers for Doctor cards. There's a massive chase item from running Perandus, and that is Xerxes Breath. It's a flask which is worth around 20 exalts. Can go much higher, can be a little bit less depending on how many people are farming it. Basically, you're not going to make your money back on just running Perandus, but when you get a Xerxes, you can make tons of money, kind of like getting a Doctor Drop. I'm just throwing that in there because I know a lot of people do enjoy farming it. It does add a bunch of monsters to the map. I don't personally ever run it. I ran it for the challenge and that's it. But if you're just kind of chasing high tier items and you love like big drops, you might want to check out Perandus as well. So the next two I do run, and that is Beyond. So Beyond is a bit of a funny one. Straight up just beyonding every map I feel isn't worth it, but when you use it in certain situations, it can be extremely powerful. So when you're in a group, it's very good, or when you're using many, many sextants, like we're talking 3 or 4, and you get high mob density kind of rolls, like additional monsters, like we talked about in the last video, or hunted traders specifically, it is very powerful. So Beyond is something you want to use when there's lots of density, lots of monsters in a map, or you're in a map with a lot of other people. It's kind of a cherry on top kind of mod that you only want to put on when you're feeling like the map is very good, like high quantity, high pack size, all that kind of stuff. So Beyond is something that you're only wanting to do when you're kind of investing a lot already. So what we're talking about here is if you're using something that's coming up like Val Wins, or again you're running in a group, or specifically you can get Beyond on your maps. So it's a map modifier, and then when you've got a Beyond map and you put Zana Beyond on it, you actually get double Beyond. So the way Beyond works is it spawns portals, which when you get enough portals next to each other, a monster will spawn out of it. So these portals spawn out of monsters, so that's why the pack size is very good. But having double Beyond doubles the amount of portals. So more portals next to each other means more monsters, means kind of like a big snowball effect. So it's kind of like the more on there, the better this becomes, because you get more and more portals and just snowballs out of control. So Beyond, only use it when you're absolutely smashing an insane map in a big group, or just it's nuts. Moving on to the last one here, it's very similar to Bloodlines, but it requires a lot more investment, and it's dated behind Zana level 8. So that is Harbinger. Harbinger is probably the most powerful Zana mod this league because of Ancient Orbs. So Harbinger's going to throw 3 Harbingers into the map, which are basically these NPC kind of characters that continually spawn in waves of monsters. These monsters do have a chance to drop maps, and the Harbingers do spawn blue packs and rare packs. So these are going to drop a lot of +1 tier maps. So again, it's going to have exactly the same kind of restrictions that you want to be using it as Bloodlines. You want to use this in your tier 15s and 16 maps to get more Guardian maps to be able to sell to other players, and that's what's going to pay for your Harbinger. Harbingers also do have a chance to drop Mirror Shards, Exalt Shards, but most importantly, they have a chance to drop Ancient Orb Shards. So right now, one Ancient Orb is around 20 to 30 Chaos, depending on what time of the league you're playing. And these are definitely not going to go down much past that. So this is also going to recoup some of the investment that you're kind of throwing into it. So Harbinger is 6 chaos per map. So that is going to be quite a large investment. But again, you're going to make a lot of that back from map drops and Ancient Orbs. So that's why I like Harbinger. So all of the map mods just kind of from Zana summed up here. We have Bloodlines, high tier maps only, kind of get more maps. We've got Harbinger, same thing, high tier maps only, get more maps. Ancient Orbs will help pay for that a little bit as well. And then we have Perandus, which is kind of like if you're trying to go for a big drop from Xerfes. The Perandus coins will pay for a little bit of it, but generally I don't think you're going to break even on this unless you do eventually get the Xerfes. And then we have Beyond here, which is kind of a cherry on top kind of thing. When you've got a sick map and like maybe a group going, that's when you put Beyond on. You want to use it to get maximum juice out of a sick map. So that's kind of Zana mods in a nutshell and how I use them. And we're going to move on here to Prophecy. So Prophecy is a really interesting system. Hardly anyone uses it, and it has some of the most powerful effects and map mods that you can get on your maps in the game easily. And I'm going to go over a few here now. So to start off with, I'm going to start off with like kind of the mediocre ones here. So Tempest. Tempest is a pass league mechanic, but the only way to access it currently is through Prophecy. So the prophecies that you're going to be wanting to look for to generate Tempests on your map are Fire from the Sky, Ice from the Sky, and then Lightning Falls, Undead Storm, and Crushing Squall. So I've just kind of gone over these quickly because you can type them in a PoE trade and buy a lot of them. But basically what Tempest does is it adds 20% quantity, similar to chisels and other things, to your maps. And you can run one prophecy like this every single map. So it's kind of like quantity is there if you want it. It's kind of almost like having 2 Ventus Gambles on, which are max rolled on every map, if you can be bothered to buy these prophecies. They're about 1 chaos each, and you can buy them in bulk by setting up a buy order kind of thing, kind of putting a live search. I've done it in one of my past videos, but that's how I do it. These are specifically very effective at the start of the league when you have a big group and you're just trying to get as many drops as possible. That's when I use them. They aren't as much worth the trouble later on in the league when everything kind of comes down in price and it's kind of just everyone's playing by themselves. But at the start of the league, throwing these on every map definitely makes the difference. I do it, and it's some of the reason why I get so much loot. So 20% quantity from Tempests. I listed them all out there. I might actually put these in the description so you guys can type them up and have a look for them. So yeah, I'll put them down there. Next up, there's two more prophecies that basically are a sextant modifier, even a little bit better in my opinion. They seem to add more monsters than sextants, and that is Plague of Frogs and Plague of Rats. So there's two prophecies here. Each one of them does a slightly different thing. So if you're doing an outdoor map like Atoll or Gorge or something like that, you want to use Plague of Frogs. So what Plague of Frogs does is it just adds a ton of little froggos to your map, and they're all very tightly knit together. So when you shoot like a volley of anything, they all blow up. It's not like stone giants or anything like that. They're always very close together, and there's a lot of them in each pack. So they're great for things like Beyond, like we were talking about earlier, and getting a lot of pack size in the map. So if you have a very well rolled map and you have frogs, you're definitely going to notice a ton of monsters in the map. Similarly, with Plague of Rats, this is the one for indoor maps. So frogs for outdoor, rats for indoor. You can kind of put these on there and you'll get a similar effect. If you run Plague of Rats and Double Beyond on Underground Sea, whew, you are going to notice it. It's crazy. So you kind of do have to choose between Tempest and the frogs or rats, because again, you can only have one active prophecy affecting the map like these at a time. To get prophecies, use the silver coin system, but that's a completely different video. That's a big system. So, but I just buy these off PoE Trade for 1 chaos each. Try and get them in bulk. They're very good if you can get them. And lastly here, the last prophecy I want to talk about is the massive heavy hitter. It is insane money, especially if you do it at the start of the league, and especially if you have a group and you're rolling your maps like with Beyond, like the Zana Beyond, like we were talking about before. It is absolute insanity, and that is Val Winds. So Val Winds is a Tempest, like we were talking about earlier, so we automatically get 20% quantity from that, because again, every Tempest on the map will give you 20% quantity. But what it does, it's very specific. So it's going to spawn a bunch of rings on the map. There's circles and they'll be red. And when you jump in one of those, it's going to give you a buff for 5 seconds. So what this buff does is it makes every item that drops corrupted. So you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's not that good. It's just like volleying every item. Yes, it is. It's exactly like that. However, one of the outcomes for volleying an item, specifically a 6 kind of socket possibility item like bows and chest pieces and stuff, is a 6 link or a 6 socket. So when you're running Val Winds, you're going to notice this a lot. There's going to be tons of 6 sockets. So many, in fact, that you actually can't carry all the 6 sockets that spawn on the map. And I'm talking about with all 6 portals. A lot of the time I play Val Winds, especially in a group, you will fill up your entire inventories, like all of the rows, port out all 6 times, and then come back in, and there'll still be more 6 sockets that you can even carry. It's absolutely insane. But also, the cherry on top is 6 links. You'll also get a ton of 6 links. On average, it's pretty wide range here, but you'll get 5 to 10, all the way upwards of 15 sometimes if you've got a very good map. But again, Val Winds, stand in the circles, you'll get a 5-second buff, kill as much stuff as possible, as fast as possible, and then stop, wait for another ring, and loot all the cool stuff. So Val Winds, there's some videos on my channel of this. A lot of people have probably already seen that, but you can go back and check those out, and you'll see how I play the Val Winds. You do get a ton of drops. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think on average, you're going to make your money back from the prophecy, which is about 10 to 20 chaos, just from 6 sockets, and then every 6 link is 10 chaos profit. And at the start of the league, you can sell a lot of the corrupted 6 links for somewhere around 40 or 50 chaos if you've got decent colors and rolls on them. So Val Winds is a massive moneymaker. So if you're stacking everything up you've seen in this video, so you're alking, chiseling, valing, and then sextanting, and then using Zana Beyond and Double Beyond, and then you put Val Winds on it, and you've got a full group, oh my god, you guys are just going to have so much loot on your hands. It's just disgusting. You make sometimes like 100 chaos just from the drops in the map, like 6 links and stuff like that, and even more if you get good colors, obviously. But at the start of the league, this is how you stack up massive amounts of currency. It's just disgusting how much more you make per map than anyone else. So obviously the prophecies, you have to buy them, but you can also roll them again with silver coins. So that's another video again. Sorry to do that to you guys, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little breakdown here I've got for you guys. About prophecies and Zana mods. Next up is going to be Elder Rings and Circles and all that good stuff. And yes, the website stuff is still coming. We're still doing all of the loot filter stuff. We just need a bit more time. Obviously, we're juggling real life and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you guys have a lot to look forward to. Elder Rings next, and then probably I'm going to talk about specific map meta, like which maps I've liked the most. Like Underground Sea here behind me is insane. We're going to talk about that and a few others that you guys can try out, and that's going to be really good. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed the video. If you like these kind of guides, make sure you hit that upvote button. It really helps me. I really get a really good idea of what you guys are liking and not liking. So upvote, downvote, do all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.